Hi, it's Monday, the 1st of November. Wow. And I'm exploring the book of Genesis and having some fun with it. We've been doing it for a couple of weeks now. And today we're in Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 through 7. Last week we finished up with the man and the woman. The woman is named Eve. The man doesn't have a name yet, although we call him Adam. So Adam and Eve have been removed from the garden, thrown out perhaps, or graduated. I kind of wondered last week, but whatever it is, they are now out of the garden and into the world beyond, and that's where we pick it up. So, Genesis 4, verses 1 through 7. Now the man knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, I have produced a man with the help of the Lord. Next she bore his brother Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain a tiller of the ground. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground, and Abel for his part brought the firstlings of his flock, their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. The Lord said to Cain, Why are you angry? Why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is lurking at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must master it. I'm going to stop right there. I know you know what happens next, but I'm going to save that for tomorrow. We're just going to stop right there and wonder. So as we wonder, let's see. First up, I note, yes, Adam and Eve are out of the garden, and they have two kids. Eve says, I have produced a man with the help of the Lord. So how God helps in this, I'm not exactly sure in terms of how she feels about it. But again, we talk about them being thrown out of the garden, and yet God has gone with them into the world. I think that's significant because Eve has produced life. And it was, I assume the promise is kept. It was painful and difficult, and yet she is glad. And she is glad that God is with her, has been with them, and has had a part in the birth, even though the pain of childbirth is part of the punishment, we're told. It's very peculiar. So whatever it is, though, God does not remain in the garden. God is out there with Adam and Eve and is actively a part of their life. At least that's how Eve sees it. Now we have two kids. Cain, who is born first, he is a farmer, a tiller of the ground, right? So he grows crops. Abel, the younger, keeps livestock. He's a keeper of the sheep. Now, I only have this text to go by. But in the course of time, it is Cain who decides to bring an offering of fruit, an offering of the fruit of the ground to the Lord. Now, I don't know whether Cain's father, his mother, said, you need to make an offering to God, or whether Cain just felt motivated, in the same way that his mother feels that God has been part of the birth of her children. I've produced a man with the help of the Lord. Does she pass that on to Cain and say, everything you grow, you've done that with the help of the Lord? Or did Cain come to feel it himself? I don't know. But if he came to it himself, the older brother here, Cain, has made an offering to God. And his younger brother has followed suit. Now, Cain has given of the ground. Abel has come and given firstlings of the sheep, given really, really good lamb meat, basically. And God is happy with what Abel has done, but not with what Cain has done. Huh. Well, as a kid, I was sort of always taught, well, Abel's offering wasn't very good. He gave some of the leftovers and some of the crap. He didn't give the best tomatoes, didn't give the best apples, kept the best for himself. That's what we were taught. Whereas Abel, that's what Cain did, but clearly Abel gave the best that he had. the firstlings of his flock and their fat portions. So that's the good stuff. That's what we were taught. But the text doesn't say that. The text says that Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground. And I think that we could acknowledge that, with livestock, it's easier to give the best because there's quite a range. There's a big range, as you move from lamb to mutton, you can figure that out. But what grows out of the ground, which are the best carrots? Does God want the big, big carrots or the little tiny carrots? Is it the big potatoes that are the best ones? Is it the russets or is it the Yukon Golds? Like, it's a trickier thing. So I don't read in this that Cain has sort of like, whatever. In fact, it seems to me that Cain was the one who came up with the idea of acknowledging God with an offering. And his brother just followed suit. So I think Cain's getting a rough deal here. And so God makes a big deal of Abel's offering. Oh, it's wonderful. And Cain's like, and does not make a big deal out of Cain's, and he can't figure out why Cain's countenance fell. He gave this offering to God, and God went, "Oh, I like your brothers better." And Cain went, "Oh, what? Why are you upset?" Says God. "Why are you angry? Why is your countenance fallen? If you'd done as well as your brothers, I'd have liked it too." I know I shouldn't say this in religious circles, but God's a jerk. At least that's how it seems to me. As Adam, well, not named Adam yet, but Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, as they're trying to figure out how to live in the world, it seems to me as if God is trying to figure out what human beings are actually like. Who would be surprised that Cain's countenance fell? I don't know if you come from a family with many siblings or whether you've had children, but how often have you seen the countenance of an older sibling fall when a younger sibling is praised, particularly when it's, the cute baby, and the 4-year-old who's had all that attention up until the baby was born, sees everybody fussing over the new baby and just like throws a temper tantrum. I get it. It's human. It's what we do. Why is he more special than me? And that to me is exactly what's happening here. This is Cain going, why is Abel more special than me? He's got firstlings and fatty calves. I got grain. I don't know how to give you good grain or bad grain. I just gave you grain, God. I gave you my best, but it's not good enough. So it feels to me like God is figuring this out even as human beings are figuring this out. God seems to speak without much empathy. God seems to speak almost, again, in pop reference, like Sheldon on Big Bang Theory. Why are you angry? Why is your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? Without any sense that Cain is hurting here. Cain thought that he had done a good thing, but it wasn't received as a good thing. Well, it might have been until Abel came along and did a better thing. And now Cain's good thing is, he gets no credit for doing it first. He gets no credit for coming up with it. He gets no credit for what he did. No, everybody's just really taken by Abel and his little fatty sheep. That's a tough one. But then comes the wisdom that God offers. If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is lurking at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must master it. Now, that is the first time that the word sin is actually used in the Bible. And there's a couple of different words we use for sin. And those of you who have spent time with me in the past know that I think of sin as the separation between us and God, between the human and the divine. Now, a lot of that comes from a very Christian perspective for me in Jesus' teaching, which is not exactly necessarily the same as you get here. So for me, sin is the distance between me and God. Um, the word used here that we've translated as sin, I can't remember how to pronounce it. But anyway, that doesn't matter. Yeah, that it doesn't matter. It is a word that can also be meant. It can mean guilt, can mean punishment. Um, so again, it's all about context and how we use different words, right? So for me, it's also sort of about consequence. So what I'm hearing in this, what I hear in this is, if you do not well, if you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is lurking at the door. Um, Guilt is there, or punishment, or that sense of consequence. If you don't do well, there are ramifications, right? So we sometimes, at least I sometimes feel guilty when I don't do as well as I could. Sometimes it's like, I know I put in a second-rate effort, but I was just really tired this week, and it was the best I could do, and and I feel a little guilty that I didn't do a little more, that I didn't do it a little better. Sometimes I do what I think is a good job. Somebody does a better job, and I look at their effort and go like, "Oh man, why didn't I think to add a pony?" Oh, dummy, 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 dummy. Okay, that's the kind of thing I think we're talking about here with that sin is lurking at the door. That sense of guilt. I should have done better. But that guilt turns into punishment when we let it fester. Um, and I think that's part of the wisdom here that God is offering Cain. It's like, okay, so when you don't do well, do better, right? Or accept it. Don't dwell on it. It's because it's when you dwell on it, it takes over. So that sense of guilt just overwhelms you, and now you feel so guilty. Now you're angry at the task. You're angry at the job you did. You're angry at yourself. You're angry at the world that judges you, and you're pretty sure that everybody's laughing at you because you didn't win or you didn't do as well as you could have done. Of course, they're all laughing at. That's where this guilt, punishment, sin, as it were, takes over. And the advice here is you must master it. One of the reasons that I was glad that my children played competitive sports as kids, not because I wanted them to be professional athletes and win academic scholarships. I wanted them to play sports because I wanted them to lose sometimes. I wanted them to win as well. When I went to their games, when I coached them, I coached to win. And when I cheered from the stands, I was hoping for the kids' teams to win. And yet, deep down inside, I was also hoping that they would lose and learn how to deal with loss, learn with the disappointment of not winning. And I think that that's something that many of us have experienced. I'd like to think all of us have experienced it, and we've learned how to deal with it. I am famously watching. I am watching a famous election in a country just south of mine, where the man who won refuses to accept that he didn't win. And I'm listening to other people chime in on that, and suddenly I hear all the time, I hear people just denying when they've lost something. You didn't win. Ah, yes, I did. No, you didn't win. No, if they'd counted it differently. If they'd changed this wasn't fair, that wasn't fair. If they'd done this that way. Nobody in that political story, and that political story goes across state lines and in fact goes across national lines. It goes all around the world now. You hear all sorts of people just basically denying that they lost. And they become so fixated on it. Well, it masters them, and they have not mastered it. I hear those words. And yeah, that's the great big story, and you can agree with the way I see the world politically or not. But occasionally I can find myself doing the same thing. If I fail to satisfy somebody with my efforts, okay, I thought I did a really good job, and yet it didn't do what it was supposed to do. So I'm trying to think of an example that is real but not actual. Um, so I have written a lovely pastoral letter to Mrs. Smith, and I have phoned her, and I have done everything I can to help her as she has been grieving the death of her husband. And I hear back from her sister, well, as far as Mrs. Smith is concerned, you didn't do a damn thing. She still feels horrible, and she doesn't understand what you're doing as a minister. And so I can hear that, and I can take it personally and go, well, the hell with Mrs. Smith then. So have I mastered that, or is it mastering me? Or I can go, okay, and that's part of her grieving right now, and needing to place that emotion that has become anger, that has to go somewhere. Maybe I'm a safe place for that. Okay, that's part of it. All right, and so in response to that, I might try again. I might do the same thing I've done before, but do it a little better. I might think of something else that I hadn't thought to do already. So I can take that information in, and I can learn, and I can grow from it. And I think that's the wisdom that comes out of this story. I do think that God is just learning as we go, but I think that God is offering Cain, the older brother, an important lesson. That I'm assuming that Abel probably hasn't learned either, because everybody who's learning something here is learning it for the first time. So Cain is learning that sometimes you lose, and it's okay. Sometimes you do your best and it's not good enough, and that's okay. Sometimes you lose and you could have done better, and you might have done better if you tried harder, and you learn from that. So all of this is to say that losing or failing to win the prize does not take you out of humanity. It does not take you out of God's love. It does not diminish you as a human being. It is an opportunity to learn and to do better, do different, find another, another path to where you want to go. So yes, you might want to be an opera singer, but it turns out you just don't have the voice. You might have the discipline, but you just don't have the voice that people want to listen to. And so you, rather than assuming that everybody's out to get you and I guess they just don't love opera, you can learn and go, okay, so this artistic feel, what I have here is I'm supposed to be a folk singer. Perhaps I'm a painter. Perhaps I am something else. But learning that rather than letting the failure and the feelings that come from that failure have mastery over you. That's the sin part, right? And I'm not sure that that's the same sin of which we are forgiven in Jesus when we talk in Christian terms. But it is a thing that does separate us from God, but it also separates us from humanity. And it's that feeling of guilt or that feeling of punishment that it's learning to live with the consequences of not winning. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking as I hear this text. And there may be lots of other neat things going on, but I realize now I've rambled on for ages, so I am going to stop right there and see what you think of this text. See what you think of God in this, and Cain. Does Cain have a chance at learning this? I don't know, but here's my prayer. Loving God, we thank you for new experiences, and we thank you for familiar experiences that invite us to learn something that we have yet to learn. God, let us remember that we are loved not for our achievements, but for ourselves, for our efforts. Let us not take winning and losing personally. Let us come to understand that every task, every moment is an opportunity to learn, to grow in faith, to become closer to you. May our wondering today be such an opportunity. May our minds and hearts be opened, and may we grow in faith. May we grow closer to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. That's enough for me today, but I wish you a wonderful day, and I just want you to know that you're not alone. You absolutely are not. And win or lose, you are absolutely loved by God. And I hope you come back tomorrow, because I know we know what happens next, but we got to hear it, right? So we'll see you tomorrow. God bless.